Love 'em or hate 'em, bards have been part of Dungeons & Dragons since before 1st edition. And the 1st edition bard is wild. Let's talk about it. So previous to this, I made a video about bards. In fact, it was my very first D&D Minute video, back when YouTube's shorts were only allowed to be a minute long. So I tried to talk about it as quickly as I could, and I left out so much information, and I've been wanting to redo a video about 1st edition bards for a long time. So here we are. The bard first appeared in a zine called Strategic Review, and it was designed by a man named Doug Schwegman. Gary Gygax took Schwegman's class that he designed and modified it to put it into the 1st edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rulebook as Appendix 2 to the player's handbook, because the bard class is so ridiculously overpowered that Gygax felt that most dungeon masters would not allow the bard to be played in their campaigns. So what inspired this bard class? Well, I'm going to read some quotes from Schwegman himself, which appeared in the Strategic Review, specifically referencing my screen, so I'm going to look down. Specifically, the Strategic Review, Volume 2, Number 1, from February 1976. And he states that they are composed of, it's a hodgepodge of at least 3 different kinds: the Norse skald, the Celtic bard, and the Southern European minstrel. He took ideas from all of these 3 things because he wanted the bard to be a kind of a jack of all trades thing: a fighter, a lover, a poet, a lore master, a musician, just this kind of like really cool thing that was inspired both by, obviously real life people, but also fictional. Bards were, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but lore says that in order to be a bard you had to train with the druids for 20 years. What else does he say? He says that Bilbo from The Lord of the Rings has some bard-like qualities in that he writes poems and things like that, and I kind of agree. Bilbo's a bit of a bard, a little. He says, I wanted to put the bard into perspective so that his multitudinous abilities in Dungeons & Dragons can be explained. I have fashioned the character more after the Celtic and Norse types than anything else. Thus, he is a character that resembles a fighter more than anything else, but who knows something about the mysterious forces of magic and is well adept with his hands, etc. So that was another quote from Doug Schwegman about how he created the bard. So what did Gygax do in translating Schwegman's bard from the Strategic Review into Advanced Dungeons & Dragons? Well, quite a bit, and it's pretty wild in how hard it was to actually actually become a bard character. There were so many requirements. I have the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook right here, so we're going to read right from the rules too, so you can see how really powerful these characters were, and also how some of the original bard abilities have come down through the versions of the game. Bardic inspiration, anyone? We'll see. Okay, so to start with, ability scores. Bards have to have an ability score of 15 or higher in strength, wisdom, dexterity, and charisma. 15 or higher. They also had to have a 12 or higher in intelligence and a 10 or higher in constitution. So all 6 of their ability scores had minimum requirements to that. 4 of them had to be 15 or higher. That's crazy. And then you wouldn't even start as a bard. You had to start play as a fighter. And sometime between fighter levels 5 and 8, you had to multi-class over to thief, and then take on thief levels. Once you got to thief level 5 to 9, you could then become a bard. So I don't want to say worst case scenario, but the minimum requirement then would be having 5 levels in fighter, 5 levels in thief, and then you can become a bard. So essentially you would be a level 10 character, then finally becoming a bard. If you went the other route and went maxed, you would have to be a fighter level 8, a thief level 9, so essentially a 17th level character, and then become a bard. And I think, and others have said so as well, I think that these requirements, not only were put in the game to give the bard character the fighting abilities and thieving abilities, but it was also, I think, supposed to represent the 20 years of training that a bard was supposed to do with the druids. Once you actually became a bard, you retained all of your fighter and thief abilities, but your experience points were reset to 0, and you followed the bard character class table. So, you needed then 2,000 experience points to become a level 2 bard, blah, 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 blah. Bards right off the bat took on druid spells right at first level, and they advanced in, number of druid spells they could cast and the types and all of that. So they were casting druid spells in addition to having all of their thieving abilities and fighting as a fighter. So if you went into melee combat to swing your sword, you would be attacking as whatever fighter level you were. If you were trying to use a thieving ability, you would be using it as whatever thief ability level you were. And then you would be casting spells as a druid of the equivalent level. So a first level bard would be casting as a first level druid. And I think I've interpreted that correctly. It makes sense anyway. Additionally to all of this, bards had their own special abilities. They would gain additional languages at certain bard levels. They had an innate charm percentage for each level that got better the more levels of bard you got. And they also had a chance to know legend lore and item knowledge. And of course, the more bard levels you had, the easier chance you had to know any type of lore, be able to identify magic items, that sort of thing. They were really, really powerful characters. Now, the charm percentage at the bard levels is, if you were a bard and you played music, anybody that was eligible to be charmed through either a charm person or a charm monster spell, no matter what song you were playing, they had a chance to become charmed by your music if they were somebody not associated with you. So this did, and the way I read it, it's not too clear, but the way I read it is like party members, hirelings, henchmen weren't going to be affected by this charm effect. Other things would. If the monster or NPC or whatever, failed their save against the charm, the bard could then immediately use suggestion, as in the spell description, to basically cast suggestion on them. So it was like a 1-2 punch. No matter what music the bard was playing, you would be automatically throwing a charm spell out there. And then anyone who failed that charm spell was then susceptible to suggestion, like that, Conversely, on the other side, if the bard wanted to do good for the party, we had inspiration. The bard could play music or sing a song that would inspire the party members. Does this sound familiar to anybody? And that would give, what does it say, a +1. Yeah, hit probability die rolls are given a +1, But it required 2 rounds of the bards either reciting poetry or playing something. So, during combat, the bard would have to be doing something for 2 rounds in order for that inspiration to take effect. It wouldn't be immediate. Magical musical instruments basically had double the effect if a bard was using them. For instance, the pipes of the sewer generated double the number of rats in half the amount of time. I don't like rats. The lyre of building had double the effects. The horn of blasting did 50% greater damage. So magical musical instruments were more powerful when used by a bard as well. So these were like super powerful characters that were basically created to represent these kind of characters from legends, lore, and history. It was a kind of a mix of all these things, kind of just like every other character class is. But they were so powerful that Gygax felt that there needed to be restrictions in order to get there, because holy moly, I mean, these characters could do a lot. Anyway, what do you think of first edition bards? Is it something that you would have played, you would have tried to play? It would have taken a long time to get there, for sure. I don't know anybody that played bards. I've seen some stuff in forums online where people tried and failed to get there. I've seen where people did get there eventually, and they broke the game. So what do you think? Is the first edition bard something you would have liked to have tried? Did you try it? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.